In today's supervision, I am bringing up a client session with Uncle Ray, an Aboriginal elder. During the session, he expressed suicidal ideation but shared that he does not want his family knowing everything. Afterwards, I shared a session summary with his niece without consent and did not conduct a risk assessment. Hence, I identified a key ethical dilemma where I, the provisional psychologist who is practicing in Victoria, must respect his autonomy but may need to share confidential information to prevent serious harm, as stated in Code of Conduct 3.3 confidentiality versus Code 7.1 risk management. The direct code of conduct principles here in play are number one, Code 3.3 confidentiality and privacy. Information that Uncle Ray shared about should not be disclosed without informed consent. His confidentiality is also protected by the Australia Privacy Act 1988. Furthermore, while Kara is an associated party, according to Code 4.4, psychologists must only involve them when appropriate and with respect to his rights. Emailing details without consent will violate principles of minimum necessary disclosure. However, as Uncle Ray stated his suicidal ideation, this puts him at risk of harm, which prompted escalation and disclosure as referenced in the Mental Health and Wellbeing Act Victoria 2022. The Code 7.1 Risk Management and the National Preventive Health Strategy Guidelines also state ethical decisions should consider a client's assessed level of risk. While Uncle Ray displayed passive suicidal ideation, his increased alcohol usage puts him at increased risk of harm based on statistics from Shun and colleagues. Based on Code 4.2D, informed consent, and the APS professional practice guidelines, due to his impaired capacity, it could be ethically justifiable to share confidential information post-session with his niece, Cara. Despite Uncle Ray's risk of suicidality, I did not conduct a structured risk assessment in therapy. I also experienced increased fatigue and concentration issues due to heavy workload, which conflicted with Code 9.1, Health and Wellbeing, Code 7.2C, Psychologist Performance and Health, and Code 1.1, Effective Services. Moving on to a values trap. My values of autonomy creates bias towards safeguarding Uncle Ray's confidentiality at all costs. I may impose values of prioritizing self-direction and client independence at the expense of providing effective services as per Code 1.1 and overlook Uncle Ray's risk of harm, which is Code 7.1 risk management. To mitigate the above, I can practice metacognitive reflection, interpersonal process recall as based on research by Jaeger and colleagues. Secondly, I contend group or individual supervisions to address biases according to research by Robertson and colleagues, which states that formal feedback may mitigate the influences of bias in therapy. The rights and vulnerabilities here is that number one, Uncle Ray is of utmost priority. He has the right to confidentiality and self-determination as per Code 3.3 privacy and confidentiality. However, he is vulnerable due to mental health and the risk of serious harm. The psychologist here has the right to seek supervision and support duty to practice with safety and competence and to comply with legal and the code of conduct. This aligns with Code 3.3, privacy, Code 1.2, effective services, and Code 7.2D, performance and health. However, I, as a psychologist, is vulnerable to moral distress, occupational stress, and limits in my professional competence, which aligns with Code 1.1, effective services, and Code 9.1, health and well-being. Lastly, the community clinic has the right to duty of care, clinical governance, responsibility for safeguarding the well-being of its patients and its clients as per Principle 6 of the Code, working within systems. However, it's vulnerable due to organizational failure if consents are not escalated properly and liable for malpractice. From here, we have two possible resolutions. One, to continue therapy sessions with Uncle Ray while seeking additional supervision, revisit consent, and explain confidentiality limitations as per Code 10.3, provisional psychologists, and Code 1.2, effective services. Next, to conduct a thorough risk assessment for suicide in the next session as per guidelines from Safer Care Victoria on suicide prevention. And lastly, to get Uncle Ray's involvement in the safety plan and ask for his consent on including Kara, which relates to 4.4b associated parties. Option B here is to conduct a thorough risk assessment for suicide in the next session, but inform Uncle Ray that he will be transferred to another psychologist with better expertise working with Aboriginal clients. This aligns with Code 4.7, Maintaining Continuity of Services, Parts C and D. We have consequences for each option. Option A, do not transfer the case and continue therapy. For Uncle Ray, he benefits in the short term as this maintains the trust, build the therapy alliance, as per Code 4.1b, working relationship with clients. In the long term, this also allows him to make his own decisions in a safety plan and promotes his autonomy and self-determination as per Code 3.3, confidentiality. However, the risk here is that if his risk of harm is higher than estimated, it could lead to even further serious harm as per Code 4.5, your response when you service harm clients. As for the psychologists, the benefits I have in the short term is that additional supervision will improve my competence. This is aligned with Code 1.1c, working within limits of my competence. However, the risk here is that in the long term, I may underestimate his risk of harm due to clinical burnout. Research by Vivolo and colleagues show that burnout affects professional efficacy and emotional availability. This aligns with Code 7.1g to risk management, where I should reduce error and improve safety of the clients. Option B, to transfer the case. The benefits for Uncle Ray here is that case transfer to another psychologist with experience working with Aboriginal clients will ensure that he's benefiting from culturally safe practice. This aligns with Code 2, cultural safety. The risk here, however, is that in the short term, case transfers may cause distress if mishandled, and research from Sherry and Samuel show that case transfers will lead to high dropout rates and risk him to feel disengaged in future sessions. For the psychologist, the benefits is that I uphold the code in providing safe and effective services and duty of care since I am risk of impaired judgment towards clients and cannot take the case. This aligns with Code 1.1, effective services, and Code 7.1, risk management. The risk here, however, is that disruptions in treatment might affect his autonomy. For example, if consent to transfer confidential information to the next psychologist is not granted, it will risk his suicidal ideation not being disclosed or addressed in future sessions. APS guidelines also state that he has the right to design and lead his own services. From here, I have my final decision and reenactment plan. 1. I will proceed with option B to transfer the case to the next relevant psychologist. As Uncle Ray's risk of suicide is credible and my being unable to provide safe service due to my burnout, as per Code 1.1 effective services and Code 7.1 risk management, this means it may lead to serious harm, and I should be prioritizing his benefits and principles of non-maleficence. This aligns with Code 7.2 Psychologist Performance and Health and 9.1 Health and Wellbeing. As such, I have an enactment plan, which is 1. Schedule a rapid follow-up session and conduct a risk assessment based on the guidelines by Safer Care Victoria. 2. Obtain written consent from Uncle Ray to disclose information and transfer the case. Share recommendations to a safety plan while also safeguarding his autonomy. Lastly, I should carefully document reasons for disclosure and how his risk of harm was mitigated. Thank you.